Well, hi, everybody.
Hi, Jack. You gonna hijack it?
Just don't say that in the airport. Yeah, it's good to be back again. You know, it's funny. A couple of years ago, I don't know how many of you know Brian Goodwin, but he's a prophetic guy. And I've known him over the years, but not real well. He's been in the audience when I've done conferences. He's never been in my church or any of my churches. But he contacted me, and he said, I feel like I have a word for you. I mean, I haven't seen him, heard from him in years. And he saw a river, and then with little rivulets going out from there, and little restaurants on these little rivulets. And I go, well, what does that mean? He goes, well, I don't know, but I think it's for you. Does it make any sense? Well, since then, God has brought, and it's kind of weird, it's like, the answer is, I don't do anything, and then God makes stuff happen. You know, so I just kind of wait, and God keeps bringing different little streams. And then each of those groups is like a restaurant that feeds people, you know, spiritually and healing and all that. And so it's amazing to me. So to me, just so you know, I have two campuses that I pastor on Sundays. Well, not the Sundays, but they meet on Sundays. One's up at Oak Shores, one's Heritage Ranch. But I feel like you're another one of those rivulets that God's brought together, you know, because we've been so involved with you, and it's been such a blessing. You know, I know Mitzi was coming way before I was, so thank you for letting us keep coming, because we really love it. So we have quite a few of our people here today. We have people that have never been here from my churches, so it's kind of good because today's a smaller day, so we filled it out a little bit.
That's right.
So Perry and Sonia, would you wave your hands? So he just came on staff.
Oh,
So
right.
that's Perry Morris and his wife Sonia, and fantastic people. Is Jerry Gruber here? He thought he was going to be here. Okay. And anyway, fantastic. Do you have the notes? I have some notes on light. You guys are so far away back there. I don't bite.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not. So we value a lot of things, but not human dignity. And so in the Bible, and this would not be new to you if you've been in the church or the kingdom of God at any length of time, but the Bible talks about light a lot. And it does it on purpose, both in the Old and the New Testament. And so it's an important truth. So I'm going to highlight some of them. There's other parts of this, but I'm going to highlight some of them for you today. Also, I was talking to a young man who just graduated from UCSD. And he actually broke down crying because he was so terrified of the world that he was now going to go into as a young adult. And he's been in school all these years, and he's super smart. UCSD is a brainiac college. And this kid had a full scholarship, very bright kid, but he was absolutely terrified. He is convinced that because of global warming, I'm not making comments politically about anything like that, but he is convinced because of global warming that he will never be married, he'll never have children, that we'll all be dead before he has time to experiencing that. And he's absolutely terrified of the world today and the condition of the world. Not from a Christian point of view, just as a college student that has been exposed to all that kind of thing. He's going to be, he's a biochem major, he's going to be a scientist. So for him, that realm hasn't been a very good answer. So it was interesting. So if you have any of that in you, you know, because there's darkness often brings out fear. Anybody know about the boogeyman?
I did.
Did you get raised in the boogeyman? I believed in the boogeyman when I was little. Like, So I remember I had a cold, and my mom put a vaporizer. You know what a vaporizer is? In the corner by the closet in my bedroom, and she put Vicks Vapor Rub in there, and it melts, and it like goes in the air, and it's supposed to help your cold. So I wake up in the middle of the night, and I look over my closet, and I see this ghosty thing. So I thought, the boogeyman's in my room. So I just froze. I thought, maybe if it doesn't see me, it'll go away. You know? So I'm trying not to breathe. I'm holding my breath. Now I have to breathe real slowly, and it's not going away, and it keeps moving around over there. So it seems like I went closer, and I'm like freaking out because the boogeyman in my mind was in my bedroom. Finally, I can't stand it. I decide I'm going to attack it. So I jump out of my bed, I run and tackle this mist, and landed in my closet, and all my clothes fell on top of me. My dad comes running, what is it, what is it? You know, he's a breed, you know, he's like, and he just starts laughing. He goes, you just tackled a vaporizer, didn't you? So it's like, you know, but I had this fear that it wasn't really real. And so if you have fear, it was cool to hear you praying for our leaders, for the president. You don't hear that a lot anymore. And one of the things that's a biblical truth, that maybe I'll bring out another time here, authority is a big deal in the Bible. And God, do you think God's in control?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, if you believe in a great big God, anything's possible. If you have a small God, if he shrunk, you get more fearful. When there's darkness around us, whether it's within a country or within the world or the political landscape, whatever may be happening, is that power really in control? It's a good question to answer, what you believe about that. You guys know who Nebuchadnezzar is in the Bible? You know he was not a Christian, right? He was not a Jew. He's a Babylonian. Extremely powerful king. He actually went crazy at one point. Remember that part? Did you know the Bible calls him the servant of God? When he took Daniel and all the Jews captive, that he used Babylon to judge Israel because they were going to false gods. Nebuchadnezzar is actually called a servant of God. Now, he wasn't a believer in God at that point, but God used him. Now, what does that tell us? Who's in control? Was it Nebuchadnezzar, who seemed so mighty and powerful and just took over God's people and made them slaves? Or was God moving everything together? And we see this numerous times. They went to Egypt. I mean, you see this ebb and flow. The Jews follow him. The people of God follow God. There's peace. They take the land, the promised land. And then they turn and they start sinning. They go to false gods. They start going to other idols. And God will allow judgment to come and deal with it. And then they repent. Sometimes when we sin, God brings trouble. Why? To get our hearts back toward him. Is America in trouble?
Yes. You betcha.
This is a great time for the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yes, it is.
In fact, we have really good job security. It's pretty easy to be liked today. You don't even have to, you can just be a little flicker. It really shows up because it's so dark. So we see light here, and so it's good to be honoring and respectful of authority, because the Bible talks about in Romans how we submit to them, whether they are pagan or Christ-centered, God is the authority over them. So we don't have to agree with them, we don't have to vote for them, we have that right, but we need to be respectful. So authority is really big. So Mitzi is very much like that. Somebody called my office and said, I want to talk to the head hog of the trough. Mitzi, she's got very defensive. She goes, well, we don't not talk about our pastor like that. He goes, oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to donate $10,000 to the church. She goes, excuse me, Porky just came in the room. No, she didn't do that. She might, I don't know. This is not in your notes, but I'm going to read this to you. This is in John chapter 1, verses 4 and 5 and then 9. In him was life, and the life was the light of all mankind. Who's he talking about?
Jesus.
Correct. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Verse 9. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. So this is talking about the coming of Jesus and how there was darkness. It's interesting to me, God being sovereign and all, why did he choose that time in history and that place to come into the world? It was a very dark time for the people of God. They didn't even have their own land anymore. They're under the Roman rule, the Roman government. There was slavery. Did you know in the city of Rome there were more slaves than free people in that population? It was a very dark time. I don't even know how to comprehend that kind of lifestyle. Actually buying and selling human beings like that as legal as part of the government. And the superiority of the Romans, you had rights as a Roman that nobody else has the entire Roman Empire. So if you weren't Roman, you were already, and then if you were other things like a Jew, boom. So dark times. Jesus chose, as the light bearer, to come at that very dark time on purpose. And he says the darkness cannot overcome it. So let's look at your notes here. Light invading the darkness. First of all, there's a moral darkness, right? Pretty obvious. It's amazing how much things have changed in my lifetime. That what used to be evil is now called good. And what used to be good is now called evil, just like the Bible talks about. It says that in the last days. That's one of the things that's going to happen. So God's already told us, he's not surprised that in the last days, evil is going to increase, like birth pangs, to give birth to what ultimately God's going to do. And then there's spiritual darkness. Spiritual darkness isn't just meaning people that don't know the Lord. There's a spiritual darkness even within the church.
Yes.
One of my prophetic friends one time, he said, the church doesn't know how to blush anymore. It's become sympathetic to sin.
True.
Not all of it, but parts of it. There's an evangelism that's dark as well as God's evangelism of the gospel. So I don't know how many of you have had a chance to know gang members, but I've worked with them, and I have this ministry. We still have it called Got Your Back, where we feed homeless children. And one time, these 4 cops came in my warehouse and coffee house in uniform, and they asked if they could talk with me. And I thought I was in trouble. I didn't know why 4 cops were in my warehouse, but we sit down at this table, all these young men, and they go, well, we've heard about what you're doing in feeding these homeless kids. And these guys are awesome. They were all 4 Christians, these 4 police officers. And they go, we are so tired of arresting these gang member kids over and over again and seeing them go to juvenile hall, going to prison, getting killed, getting knifed, and seeing no effect of helping them. And we want to do something about it. The Lord's waiting for that. Here I am, your servant listens. Who will go for me? I will. These 4 young men, when they came out, it just even now, it makes me choke up. We want to do something about it, not just arrest them. That alone means they get it. God really loves lost people.
Amen.
So the people, if you have any hatred, God loves that person you hate, or you haven't forgiven. God really loves lost people, hurting people, hidden people, broken people. That includes all of us. So, I want to do something about it. So, what are you thinking? So, they said, well, we've never done a nonprofit thing before. I said, well, you could use mine. We could put it under our umbrella as another branch. So we began to get together, and it was so cool. They started a mentoring program, these cops. And they brought ex-gang members in that had met Christ, that got out of that lifestyle. Hardcore, gnarly dudes. And I remember sitting in the meeting, and I can't even do it justice because I'm not a gang member, but they were telling all these kids are out there from different gangs. And this guy starts chewing them out. He goes, what's the matter with you? You all dress the same, you have the same cars, you listen to the same music. The only thing different is your turf. And you kill each other over it. What is the matter with you? You have more in common than in discommon. And it was so cool. And I'm not doing it justice. It was a whole message, but I remember, man, this guy, these kids are crying and repenting, and they lead to Christ. It was so amazing. And then hardly any of these kids have a dad around. So these cops would take them fishing. These kids have never baited a hook. And they'd get somebody on a deep sea fishing boat that would be free, and they'd take the kids fishing. They'd take them camping. And they started mentoring them. So then one day, the cops came to me and said, three gang member leaders want to talk with you. I said, really? Why? So all right, so they bring them. And the cops said, they don't understand you. And this is what my point is. I said, what do you mean they don't understand me? He goes, they are taught in the barrio where they're from that whites don't care about them. They only want to use them, and they want to keep them down. And you don't fit that mold, and they don't understand why you help their little brothers and sisters by feeding them and clothing them, and there's no strings attached. I said, well, really? So they began to ask me questions. And it was so cool. This one kid started mad dogging me. You know what that means? It means you're like staring somebody down, like just being all bad. And I was trying not to laugh. So I was only like 15 years old. So I put his food in a box, give him some food for their family. And I got this, it might have been a word from God, but it's not a very spiritual one. But I go, what kind of cereal do you like? To the guy mad dogging me. What? I go, you heard me, what kind of cereal do you want? He turns into a little kid, he goes, do you have tricks? I go, I do. Here's 2 boxes, and I put it in. And then he smiled for the first time, got all happy. Because he's still a kid, right? But he's trying to be all bad. And then one of the cops goes, well, do you have a relationship with Christ? I love these cops. And the kid goes, well, I've seen him hanging on crucifixes in church. Well, do you know why he's doing that? No. So we shared the gospel with him, and he came to Christ. It was just so cool, these cops. So there is that giving, that light that comes into darkness, not just the law. These cops were bringing the law to make people safe, which is right and good. But they had a heart for Christ. We want to do something about it. The church needs to want to do something about it.
Yes.
Not just be a social club in church buildings. And you hear me all the time talking about, let's get out of the Christian ghetto. Satan is not threatened at all if we have a good time in church buildings and never are salt and light out there. He might even bless that. We're not getting very far. Isaiah 9. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. This is a prophetic utterance. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. That means the kingdom, people. Who's the king of the kingdom?
Jesus.
The government is on his shoulders. And he will be called the Wonderful Counselor, This is what he wants to bring to the world through you, through us. Bring his wonderful counsel, mighty God, his power, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness. From that time on and forever, the zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. Who is going to accomplish this? We don't just get good and do this ourselves. I love this. God's not like on a throne going, well, Jack, I hope you do well down there, and I'll grade you in the end. I'll judge you in the end. Just go out there and do your job. It's like, it's not us. It's the empowering of the Spirit with us. The government's on his shoulders. His kingdom come. His will be done on earth, in Paso, and Atascadero, Salsa County, as it is in heaven.
Amen.
We want to do something about it.
Yeah.
So the Lord already, do you remember one time he was talking to his own disciples who are soon going to be apostles? And he said, you say the harvest is not yet. In their minds, they were making excuses. The harvest is not yet. You say to his own disciples. But I say to you, open your eyes and see. The harvest is ready for the reaping. What does he mean, open your eyes and see? How did Jesus see people when he was on earth? What do the scriptures say? When he saw people, how did he see them?
According to the Spirit.
Without a
Spirit. But
shepherd.
there's actually
Lost sheep.
Without a shepherd.
sheep without a shepherd, harassed and helpless. Compassion, many times. He saw them with compassion. That compelled him into the harvest. So he's rebuking his own disciples. You say, well, we're not ready yet. We need to go to school first. I need to get a degree first. After I get a job, then I'll serve the Lord. He's saying, no. Open your eyes. Have eyes like I have. If you don't see like I see, you won't do what I do. If you don't hear like I hear, you won't do what I do. You open your eyes and see. Now, they had eyes to see. He's talking about in here eyes of light that is in conflict with darkness. That's our job. 2 Samuel 22:29. You are the lamp, O Lord. The Lord turns my darkness into light. So light invading the darkness. I could pick many scriptures where this is illustrated. Secondly, the light of his presence. I love this part. Blessed are those who have learned to acclaim you, who walk in the light of your presence. Why do we worship at every meeting?
Because we love his presence.
Is it a warm-up act? It's actually the most important thing we did today. Did you know that? If we really engage God, if we really worship God, this becomes really easy. In fact, I could really preach badly. If we really worship, you'll think it's great. I learned that a long time ago. It really helps. So coming into God's presence already softens our heart. Light is already scattering darkness in our own minds and hearts. Have you ever been oppressed, depressed, hurting, grouchy, self-centered, and you go to church and you worship, and there's a lifting?
Yes.
Every time. If you choose to really worship. His presence comes and it scatters the darkness, and then it also goes through us to other people. I like to call worship a table set for two. You know, the main Greek word for worship in the New Testament means to approach as to kiss. To approach as to kiss. It's a very intimate word. A table set for two. Kingdom worship. The light of his guidance. So not only the light of his presence, the moral and sinful darkness, but then we have the light that guides us. Psalm 43:3. Send forth your light and your truth. Let them guide me. Interesting statement. Think about that for a moment. When you think of light, what do you mean? Send forth your light and your truth. So he puts those Siamese twins together there. Let them guide me. Let them bring me to your holy mountain, to your place, your presence. to the place where you dwell. When there's darkness, bring in the light. Don't stay with the enemy who just wants to keep punching you and keep you isolated and tell you how unworthy you are, how worthless you are, how God will never use you or even like you. Don't go to that untruth. It's a lie. Bring all that into the light. That's why intercession and prayer and worship are so important. Being in God's Word, being in fellowship, it keeps that going. And the Bible talks about how we need to do that all the more as the days grow evil. Because He knew we're going to need it. We're going to need one another. And all the parts working together to keep us strong in this battle. You know, if somebody told you when you accepted Christ you're going to be in a cruise ship, they lied to you.
True.
Doesn't
You
happen
think,
yet.
hey, accept Christ, I'm going to heaven. This is great. Where's the buffet? The dessert bar. Wait a minute. This is a battleship. How did I get in a battleship? Well, I don't. That's not the deal, is it? Yes. Yes. We have it to do. You know. So, wow. Psalm 119, 105. Your word is a lamp to my feet, a light for my path. One of the things that I think is, I really like the words of the Bible because I think they're God-breathed and they're there on purpose. Where was this light?
His word.
Feet.
Your feet. And it lights your path? Why didn't it say forehead?
Oh.
Interesting. You know, God has a way of not illuminating everything because it probably scared the heck out of us,
Yes.
you know. But He gives us a light for a path. You know, start walking. Oh yeah, I see this lit up. I go this way, and I got to turn over here. There's something, there's a stone in the way. Like, and He gives you the step each day. That's why you have to constantly be in converse, commune with God. And for every day, you can't just assume, well, I've arrived. I go to church. I've accepted Christ. I learn the songs, and I got friends at church, and you know, I know the Bible pretty good, and you know, but you're not in relationship. Table set for two. I actually have had the Lord do this to me several times, where I'm serving the Lord. I'll even be asking Him what He wants to do next. That part is strong in me. I'm very faithful about seeking the Lord for what He wants. What I'm not good at is just being His son. It's not as natural for me. I grew up in a household where I adored my father, but the only touching we did was jiu-jitsu, boxing, wrestling, sports, a lot of jokes, but no hugging or kissing. I never saw my parents argue, ever. I never saw them making out. We were just always okay. Very stable. I didn't doubt that I was loved at all, but just no hugging, kissing. So I didn't know very much about, I wasn't raised right. I didn't know how to say I feel and fill in the blank. So, but I'm a good boy. What do you want me to do? But what's so cool about the Lord, He wasn't happy with that. He didn't want me just to be a servant, but a friend, a son, a little sheep Jack's little. So one day, I had a friend of mine come up from LA to my church at San Luis Obispo. And he did a concert. He also was a professional comedian. Way back in the day, he used to be in Love America style all the time, okay, Wendell Burton. And he and I were good friends in LA. So he came up, it was awesome. And he spent the night at my house, and we're having coffee the next morning. And he goes, Jack, how are you? Oh, and my church is exploding. It became a large church, and tons of people come to Christ. So I tell him all about my church. And he goes, well, I'm glad the church is okay, but I asked how you were. And what do you mean? He goes, what happened to the little sheep Jack Little? You're not just the pastor. How are you doing? How's the little sheep Jack Little? How's the child of God? I didn't know how to respond. I said, I don't know. And it was like a mirror where He showed me myself. And it just took me on a journey. I started asking God, And then the Lord said, I miss you. Why don't you just go in my lap? Can I do that? Have I been good enough? Not really, but kind of. I was like, I love you. You know what I mean? I've made it work. I love you, period. So out of that place, that's where we get our strength. That's where we get wisdom. We get healed. We get empowered in His hands. You're created in Christ for good works. He's the potter, we're the clay. Some of us need to get back in the potter's wheel. You jumped off before the vessel was finished. The light of His love through you. Isaiah 58:10. And if you spend yourselves on the behalf of the hungry, I love that terminology. Spend yourself, that means giving. If you spend yourself on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. With Got Your Back, it's so funny because we call it fighting childhood hunger right here in our own backyard. Because it's in schools here. We're in Tascadero, El Paso, down in SLO now. Down in San Diego, 23 schools down there. So, it's funny because people thank us, but it's such a pleasure. It makes you feel alive. Because there's light there all the time, because that's where God is. You find out what God is blessing and you join that. You don't try to talk Him into blessing your ideas. So He already tells me to spend myself on the oppressed and those that are hungry. So it's so cute. I'm told the head lady, I had a coffee house warehouse in San Diego, and the money from the coffee house went to buy food for the kids and stuff. And we had a stage, it's really a cool place with a lot of events and things, fundraisers, and a warehouse where all the food was and the backpacks. So there's a lady in charge of the schools called the McKinney-Vento Act. The McKinney-Vento Act is a government program where they decide who is homeless. They identify who's homeless. So if a child lives in a car, a shelter, a campground, multiple families in a motel room, a garage, they don't have a permanent address. They're considered homeless by the government, and that's the lowest level of poverty. They have a poverty leveling system in the schools. You probably know that. So they get benefits. So one of the benefits they get is a free lunch and a free breakfast at school every day, which is great. The downside of that program is they have no food on the weekends. Some of the kids, that's their only nutrition they have. So if they have diabetes or other issues, it doesn't work out very well. Or they're so hungry on Monday, it's not a level playing field, they can't concentrate in class. So what we do is we show up and we ask for permission to bring backpacks on Friday for all the kids that are part of that program or anybody they want to bring to it. And we'll give enough food for the child and their child family for the weekend. And all the 9 food groups, we try to keep it healthy. We don't use a lot of sugar, but it has to be non-perishable. They don't have refrigerators. They don't have ovens. They're pretty smart though. They know how to use microwaves at 7-Eleven, stuff like that. They have burners. So that's what we do. We get involved. So I tell the lady that's in charge of the McKinney-Vento Act in the school district that if you have other needs, because you're involved with all these kids and families, call me. If I have the resource, we'll help. I'm not the kind of guy that just writes checks. I like to get personally involved. So she called one day and she said, well, there's this woman who fled another state because a man was beating her, and she had 2 little girls, and she left with nothing but her car. She doesn't have clothes, food. Can I send her over to your warehouse? I said, yeah, send her over. So this little lady comes in, and one of her little girls, Janet, I'll never forget her, she was with her because she had an infected ear. So she didn't go to school that day, and she was in pain. So I have a box, and I'm putting food in it, and I had a blanket, and I just happened to have 1 teddy bear somebody donated, and I gave it to Janet. She's like, oh, because they don't have anything. And then myself and one of the girls on staff, we gave her 2 phone numbers for a job. And told her, tell them we sent you and see if they have an opening for you. And so all that was great. And then I said, would you mind if I laid my hands on Janet's ear and prayed that God might heal her ear? What? She starts sobbing. She goes, I just prayed this morning. I didn't have anything. Now I have clothes, food, a blanket. You gave my daughter a teddy bear, and now you're going to pray for her. This is the best day ever. Like, yes, please pray. So I get on my knees and I pray for Janet's ear. So all that's good, right? But it gets better. So then next week I go to that school where Janet goes and her sister, and I'm bringing backpacks in. There's this area, and there's this room, smaller than this, but there's 4 desks where all the administrative ladies work in that school. I walk with the backpacks, we all know each other, they're real nice. They all stand up and gather around. They go, hey, we heard you healed Janet's ear. And I said, well, I can't heal anybody, but Jesus did. And here we are, it's illegal to talk about Jesus in the public schools, and we're talking about Jesus in the public schools, and I'm laughing so hard inside, like, this is awesome. This is fantastic. You know, and it just snowballed from there, and word was out, and they're talking about Jesus. Light had come to darkness and brought some hope. We got to do something about it. When I heard there was over 20,000 homeless kids in San Diego County, that's what happened to my heart. I said, we got to do something about this. I didn't know that. And I've been involved with adult homelessness for a long time. But these kids have no choice. And they're not doing drugs in the bushes. They're hidden. They go to school, you know, fighting childhood hunger right here in our backyard. There are so many venues you and I could get involved in like that. Sex trafficking would be an awesome one to get involved in. Matthew 5:14 through 16. You are the light of the world. This is Jesus talking. Who's he talking to?
Us.
Us. Put your name in there. Betsy, you are the light of the world.
Amen.
Debbie, you are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. So he's actually used this word picture like, let it shine. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. So you light a light to be seen and to see, right?
Right.
But sometimes that bowl is a church. We sum up church as Sunday morning. But then we're not the church. Because the church is light and salt. Instead, they put it on a stand, let it shine. And it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. Another little boy, I was handing out backpacks the first day we started school, and I'm being introduced to each kid. There's this little tiny guy, I give him his backpack. He does a death grip, like, whoa. And he goes, my mommy and daddy were arguing this morning because we only had $20. And my dad either needed to put gas in the car so we could go to work or we could buy food with it, but we couldn't do both. And now I have food to bring home to my family.
Oh.
This big sister tried to take it. No way. He's providing for his family. He goes, I have provided for my family. He was so excited. You know, three tear hankies, like, you know, one little girl, and they're not all Hispanic or black or a white girl. She goes like this. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And I go, well, because we care about you and want to be here for you. Oh. Well, how do you get all this stuff? I go, well, there's a lot of people that care for you and want to be here for you, so they donate it. Really? And it was so cute, a little tiny tear. She goes, I didn't know anybody cared about us.
Wow.
Light and darkness. Faith, hope, and love. We have it to do. So here, this meeting, the generals, you know, a general, a leader, leads where? You encourage one another, you lead, you become influencers. The church is a force in the world. And we bring His grace and mercy and His presence to do all the stuff the kingdom does. To bind up the broken, to heal the sick, to drive out demons. So let's do something about it. So I'm being a little serious. So when I come back next time, we're going to talk about some practical ways. How do we do this? So I hope you come back for that. So I come here about once a month. I told Delinda I thought it was time to do something like this. So what do you think? Amen?
Yes.
Let's stand.